But I wanted to thank you all for coming. And this is our second annual meeting. So this is a relatively new phenomenon, even for DhIA. We've chosen always to do this by publishing, if you will, a report and going through what we've done. So you will hear from the 4 officers, then the nominations committee, and then we will announce the results of the election, which were already conducted. And we will conclude the annual meeting. And then, as I promised, move quickly into the 3 working groups and a discussion about what they've done and what they want to do in 22. So we can move to the president's report. And really, the most important thing that happened in 2021, first full year of DhIA's existence, was that we were trying to find, in the middle of COVID, in the middle of the crisis, both in India with the second wave and so on, what were the gaps? How could we actually serve our community and the broader community? And the 3 things we identified were the economic and social gaps related to dharmic women. The second was we acknowledged and understood that there were significant gaps in the way we were engaging with students, particularly college students and our youth broadly, meaning they leave home and until then you have been sort of dragging them to community events and family gatherings. They leave home, go to college, and they feel disengaged from the community. What could we do to change that paradigm? And finally, broader community needs that could be served by our traditions, especially the needs of frontline essential workers. And these are all things that connect, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism. They connect all our traditions that emanated from India. And we have to incorporate, as we focus in these, on our 3 pillars: education, social service, and the arts. How do we incorporate that while we're addressing these gaps? So you will hear more from Aparna, our vice president, and then the working groups on these 3 areas of focus, and the funds that Nitya will tell you about that we've now started to dedicate to these focus areas. So what did we do in 21? And again, you will hear more very quickly. 7 webinars. Obviously, there was little opportunity other than one event that we partnered with Indiaspora on that was face-to-face. But we did find numerous organizations working in different aspects of our work. And we started to expand our work to serve all dharmic communities. And you can just see that now beginning to get reflected in our 15-person board. Most importantly, I think we were all asking the question, why have we created DhIA? What was the origins? How did the Sri Shiva Vishnu Temple decide that it was worth creating something that could work alongside it, but was different? We feel like we have proven the thesis that there is a role for us in the ecosystem. So we have a big challenge ahead of us that Aparna will stress. It's how do you scale these initiatives and do it with substantial and recurring support? It's going to take a more permanent infrastructure in terms of staffing, but we absolutely need the volunteer support and the ideation. So to conclude my remarks, let me just tell you that we are, instead of doing another annual summit type event, we've decided we're going to launch something we're calling the Thought Leaders Forum. And the Thought Leaders Forum is especially designed to attract younger audiences. The inaugural event will be on Saturday, May 7th, 2 to 4 p.m. And it features a really renowned professor. He's taught at Ashoka University in Delhi, and he is now teaching at Princeton University. His name is Pratap Banu Mehta. And we will be sending out not only an invitation to this, but we will also be sending out some of his writings about tradition, about young people and their connectivity. The topic is faith and politics. He thinks, this is what he's teaching about, by the way, in Princeton. But we asked him, can you put that in a context, a dharmic perspective? He's coming here and it's live, but it's going to be a limited audience. We're doing it in the SSVT Education Room in Lanham, Maryland. So 50 people or so. So the first 50 want to come in person, and it'll also be virtual. And we will have a dialogue either through Facebook or Twitter at the same time as this conversation is going on. So please join us for our inaugural first Thought Leaders Forum, and we hope to have several more in person, either in the DC area or in other places. So with that, let me turn it over to Aparna Ramaswamy, who's our Vice President. Aparna?
So when we started 2021 about a year and some ago, DhIA was newly incorporated, and yet last year was, as Yuka said, our first full year. We had identified women in Dharma as one of our target areas. And with our inaugural event in April, there were so many areas that we could really go into. And we made a decision that we would identify and focus on finance as an area of focus to empower women from the Dharmic fold. So we had several webinars that focused on finance. You will have Niru and Teja talk a little bit more about that. I'm going to pause a minute over here and just request everyone to stay muted. Coming back to this, so Women in Dharma was a focal event for us last year, and we did several webinars, invited several speakers, experts in the field, not just in the Dharmic fold, but also in the finance education fold, looking to explore how exactly can we empower women, and more to come on that this year and to follow. The second area we had focused on, as Shekhar said, was about Dharmalaya and youth engagement. We had the opportunity to be involved with Georgetown University. I had, been there the fall of last year. We piloted several programs and we explored how could we connect our community leaders from, Dharmic fields with students. How can we build those relationships where we can mentor students, learn from them, engage them, and we discussed various ways that DhIA could step into that role. At Georgetown, we had the opportunity to do two specific things. One, of course, is food sponsorship. We were able to reach into many of the Dharmic organizations in this area who sponsored food, and food is always a wonderful way to connect with our youth population. We found that there was a tremendous opportunity for bi-directional relationship, where students were able to go into various community organizations and learn about what they may have not learned growing up and find ways to support community organizations. And the other way around, we had a way to go into the college campuses to learn from our students what were some areas they were needing in terms of understanding the relevance of Dharma in their life. The second program we were able to sponsor was a Leadership, Ethics, and Innovation series, where for those students who were not necessarily attached to Dharmic religious traditions, we were able to talk to them about principles of Dharma. How does ethical principles drive business decisions, leadership, and we had tremendous support from the community in that. Now, while we piloted it at Georgetown, that certainly opened up the opportunity, which we will continue to expand on this year and in the future, of expanding these services to as many universities as we are able to, both in this area and of course the world of Zoom that it's opened up. Now this year we've started a similar trajectory where we've started working with Princeton and Yale universities, specifically the Dharmic Life programs, on what do our Dharmic traditions teach us about self-care, bringing in not just Ayurveda, yoga, meditation, but talking to them from a mental health perspective, because you see that's one of those areas that we've already identified as an area of need for our youth. And of course, the third area, meditation and mindfulness, we started out really strong. We had a contract with United Health Services early last year. We offered a meditation and mindfulness for stress relief. Remember, this was right in the middle of the COVID crisis. The vaccinations had just been starting to roll out. People were going into work, and we were working with hospital staff and frontline workers and how do we help them cope with stress relief. And we were able to offer that in Zoom. We did it in a multi-dharmic fashion, pan-dharmic fashion, because meditation and mindfulness is one of those things that cuts across all of our traditions, whether it's Hinduism, yoga, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism. So we were able to stay very core to our DhIA mission and be able to offer that service. That led on to the same mindfulness and action program at many of the universities in this area. We were again able to offer that on Zoom. Emory, Tufts, NYU, Princeton, Yale, Georgetown, and later on also Columbia got included in that. We were able to meet with staff and students at these universities, talk to them about how do you take these principles of Dharma beyond the mat. How yoga and meditation is not just a 45-minute session you do, but how can we carry this true to our name in action? How do you take it forward? We did the International Day of Yoga, which we celebrated with neuroscience, meditation, and mental health webinar, because we have traditions that are not religious in the DhIA's mission. We've chose to focus on the science and neuroscientific aspects of it, and pertinent to COVID, how was its impact? Not just in India, but not just in US, but also in India. We had speakers from India bearing in on how did these community organizations actually spur into action by becoming the hotlines for people, whether it was Chinmaya Mission, whether it was the Arshavidya Gurukulam, how did each one of them step into a gap that we did not envision? And we had the Mindfulness and Action program, which we're continuing this year with the Johns Hopkins University's faculty. And what we found out was we had really walked into a very beautiful area of the art of meditation that was pan-dharmic. We were able to talk to education providers like educators, students, and again, frontline healthcare workers. Tremendous opportunities there. We are continuing it. We are reaching out to many experts in the field in a pan-dharmic fashion. And more to go there, and we're looking always for volunteers to help us, partnering with us. We've been very careful because we didn't go into it with a very clear idea of what we were going to do. So we stayed rather tightly focused on it. And we other functions we've done with the Vesak Day celebrations at White House, and of course the Tell Your Story Diwali event, bringing in children to tell their stories. So it is not just adults who are manning this. Now, what we realized is we have a need for building staff capacity. So as we move forward in 2022, we did hire a contractual support staff who's been helping us, but we have a need for a part-time projects coordinator. We've been very careful in hiring because we are a group of volunteers, but at the same time, the work that we've undertaken to do, that we're stepping in to do, is so large, it requires a professional staff who's able to focus on it and keep us going. Our things that we have to do this year is volunteer engagement. When we did the Diwali event, we realized there are many people who are probably not on the board, who are not having these conversations with us, but who are willing to take on project-based support. And that's an area we have to grow. The food sponsorship at universities is a tremendous need. Many of our children, when they leave home and they go into universities, they want home cooked feed. Many of them are affluent. They are able to order out in restaurants in our Uber Eats or whatever, but they miss our home food. And that gives us a great opportunity to stay in contact with these children as they transition from high schoolers into undergrads and graduate school. That's an area where I think we've partnered with the UHJT. Dr. Shiva has been very helpful. Sushin Jain has been very helpful. And we need to grow that a little bit more. How do we make that fruitful for all? How can we do that? What last year has taught us is we did many things that seem to address the need. There may be far more that we have not tapped into, but we need several more hands. How can we get in? So everybody on this call and everybody who's watching this recording, our plea is please get involved. Please help us make this valuable to everybody. Student membership, students love being a part of it. They want to understand and decode Dharma. What exactly is the relevance of that to my life? When I go for a party on Friday night, what has Dharma got to do with it? When I have not showered, when I have had an eventful Saturday and you're asking me to come to an arti, am I okay at coming to an arti? Am I clean? These are the kind of questions students have. So we need to actually step in over there and connect them with the leaders. So we are raising business leaders and entrepreneurs and innovators who are bound by their dharmic ethical codes. And that's where we have a lot of work to do. So we're calling upon business leaders, community leaders to step in over there. What are some ideas you have? What can we experiment over here as we move forward into 2022? 2021 was exploration. We got a few things right. 2022 is to build, reinforce for a sustainable future. And back to you, Shekhar.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Aparna. A lot got tried, as you can see. So let's ask Nitya Nagarajan, our treasurer, to spend a few minutes on the financials. Nitya?
Hi, can everybody hear me? Just want to make sure. Yeah.
Yes.
So great. Let me preface this by saying that, the 2021 was a good year in terms of understanding how we need to maintain and kind of account for our financials. It was definitely a learning experience. One of the things I want everybody to keep in mind is that our official fiscal year is January 1st to December 31st. It is a calendar year, but the reports that I'm going to present today cover effectively a 14-month period of January 1st, 21 to February 28th, 22, because that would kind of bring us to the present as to what we have in terms of cash on hand. In terms of where we want to go from today, what we need to do, and it builds upon what the Vice President's report just said, we need to plan for and budget for programs in 2022. So what I'm asking every board member to do is, when you have an idea for a project or something that you would like to see executed in 2022, we have to start with what is the budget. And then we have to have the expenses and the revenue generation for that project in mind as we are putting together the project, because it's very important to be able to have those goals in place so that you can achieve those goals at the end of that project or that program. So as board members, when you put your thinking caps on, reach out to me. I'll send you the template, and let's, put a budget together before we undertake projects. And I'm going to ask that of all board members and the project leads, so that going forward, we have some essential controls in place to make our organization function efficiently and correctly, because everybody looks at where does the money go, and we need full transparency and documentation for this money. And that's really critical with all of the focus that we got. So now let's get to the actual numbers. What we have at the end of February, just a month ago, on hand is $59,456. Out of that, we have, through the course of 21, earmarked certain funds to the 3 categories of programs that we want to go forward with. The Women in Dharma Fund has earmarked $8,500. The Dharmalia and Youth Engagement, which is the program that we are coordinating with Georgetown University, that has an earmark of $10,000. And the Meditation and Mindfulness has an earmark of $10,900. So that just gives you an idea that 21, we were able to put the seed money in to these various program categories, so that we have some money going in for any projects that we want to undertake in 22. Now, briefly, for the in terms of the monies received in 21 fiscal year plus the extra 2 months, we had a total revenue of $87,397. Out of that, 19,896 were from memberships from various grades, from full of 501 members, non-voting members, as well as kind of founder or institutional member donation memberships. The remaining 53,100 was for program-specific donations, and these included the Kolam Project, COVID Relief, the partnership with the Rotary Club of Madras, COVID Relief, Women in Dharma, and Dharma and the Youth Engagement. And then we also had, luckily enough, a kind of a general donation pool of about 4,700, and some project income that is basically overage from existing projects we undertook of 9,600. On the expense side, we had about 46,540 in expenses. But the key part of that is that most of that was the donations that we made for COVID relief and the Rotary Club of Madras COVID relief, plus the donations to each of the youth members for the Diwali program. So out of that 46,000, close to, let me just do some quick math. Let me look at that. So about 25,000 of that were actually donations to other organizations that we undertook. So that is pretty much, that's a good sort of reason for having that high in expense. So with that, if anybody has any questions, please let me know. But this is kind of the snapshot.
Yeah,
this year.
Before I turn it over to Umesh Shankar, who's the secretary, I will answer Dr. Shiva's question. The program that we did on COVID disinformation, we did not raise money for it nor spend money on it. Everybody who came on that day was a volunteer. So that's why it doesn't show up in the financials. But that program had close to 1,000 people who watched it. We had the Surgeon General, as you recall, Vivek Murthy speak, and we had a very renowned and outspoken woman doctor from South India, from Vellore speak as well. That program did get us a lot of attention, but it was just the timing. We felt the desperate need to start talking about what was really going on rather than what people were just reading on their WhatsApp feeds. Umesh, let me hand it over to you.
Thanks, Shekhar. So I will cover a couple of things with regard to the website and of course, the outreach through Facebook and Instagram. We, as and when last year, we were looking at some of the events that were going on, and since most of it was all online, we felt a dire need to update our website, both in terms of the information that we had to provide to the community, as well as for the donations and for the sponsorship, and also share what we are doing. So if you probably go back and look at what we started off on the website, earlier part of it to where we are right now, a lot of the work that DhIA has done is all available to anyone that wants to really look at the year and a half of the work that has been done on the website itself. So I think that's a great way that we can share it with people, and it is transparent as to what we are doing and what we have done and what we are focused on, and certainly as things take shape in 2022 in different ways, whether it is in person or through online, those other items of interest will be added to the website, and I think that will be a great way of, again, sharing and communicating with the community there. We also started getting into the Facebook program, and a couple of things that have happened there is we are now on the Facebook program in terms of the donation of funds. So we can actually collect the money through Facebook, which again, thanks to Aparna and one of the part-time help that we had, we were able to push through and collect the money on that. And of course, again, for the communications part of it, that is where a lot of the younger generation actually, excuse me, the March things is kicking in for me also. So the Facebook and Instagram and those are the ways that we can communicate to the younger generation of the people for their interests. So we have used that as one of our communication tools to publicize the events and also attract some of the funding that we can do. In terms of the memberships, as we have in our original thinking as to what DhIA wanted to and how we wanted to go forward, we do have the founder member, which right now is SSVT, and then we have voting members, which is 501, and then the regular membership, and then of course student member with a very minimal what we are trying to see and attract, of course, the students, because that's one of the community that we really want to have DhIA attract and work with them, as Aparna and Shekhar have mentioned in their coverage of what we have done so far. So really, these are the 4 different ways that we wanted to. And earlier, actually, we didn't have the student member, and somebody raised this question. So we said, I think that's a great idea to offer this student membership to DhIA. In terms of the fundraising for the three funds should be a priority, and we were thinking of about $10,000 to each one of them in 2022, and I think we are pretty much there, but I think that's the seed money. So when we go through the program this year, we will actually see how much money needs to be spent. And as Nitya, our treasurer, mentioned, each of the project coordinator can really kind of put in the thinking in terms of what are the programs and how much money is required for those projects. So the earmark money may not be sufficient. So I think again, request all the board members and our other members who are in today to reach out and get some donations, and that way we have more robust money for these three programs, which we are thinking of doing it this year. Shekhar?
Yes, thank you, Umesh, and we'll bring you back for the final result here. And with great thanks to our, what I've told them is they have the job for life of nominations committee, consisting of Dr. Shiva Subramaniam, Jayashree Shankar, and Mr. Raghavan. Mr. Raghavan, can we ask you to do the nominations committee report, please?
Thank you, Shekhar, and namaste to everybody. The nominating committee for 2022 positions is the same as the one previous year. We were asked to find suitable candidates for two vacancies cast by Umesh and Dr. Manoj Jain, expressing a desire to withdraw from the board because of the preoccupations, but both have assured that they'll continue to be active volunteers. So that is that life appointment should be not to the nominating committee, but to retiring directors and their families. Okay. So in addition to these two vacancies, we were also asked to consider the continuation of two directors who were appointed on an interim basis, co-opted by the board last year. And typically, these appointments are up to the next annual general meeting, which is today. And that is Dr. Wangmo Dixie and Ms. Dali Oberoi. The nominating committee's task was somewhat easy because the directors of DhIA and the nominating committee members identified half a dozen candidates who had been active in DhIA activities and known to all of us. And so what the nominating committee did was to select two candidates, Amita Jain and Teja Rao, who have been actively involved in DhIA in the last 2 years. Amita Jain is a businesswoman, part owner of a family construction company. But more importantly, for the last 20 years, she has been a yoga teacher, and last 5 years she has been involved in a non-profit, which is Ayurveda and hypnotherapy and so on. She has also been actively involved in Dharmic education through the Chinmaya mission. The other candidate whom we recommended was Teja Rao, who has been is a lawyer. She is living in Spain, but she has been actively involved in social work and also has been participating in the activities, particularly the women and Dharma activities. So we recommended that these two be filled in the two vacancies. And with regard to the reaffirming the continuation of Dr. Dixie and Dali Oberoi, both of them are leaders. Dixie is from the Buddhist faith. She is the director of the Dharma College. She's also the president of the International Buddhist Association. We could not have gotten a better candidate to represent the Buddhist faith in DhIA. Dali Oberoi represents the Sikh faith, and she is also a business person in a prominent organization, and she has been involved in education activities both through her own family foundation in India, and also here she is on the board of prominent educational institutions. With pleasure, we recommend that these candidates should be selected in a regular vacancy. What we have done is proposed that those who were co-opted to the board in the first half of the year get a 2-year term, whereas the one who is co-opted in the second half of the year gets a full 3-year term, and that's what we have proposed. I think I request the secretary to tell us about it.
Aparna, can you move to the next page on the slides? There we go. So this is what you've recommended, Mr. Raghavan, that Amita Jain and Teja Rao get elected to 3-year terms.
Yes.
And our term is April 1, is when the new board gets seated. And Wangmo Dixie continues for a 2-year term, and then Dali Oberoi will continue with a new 3-year term. Also, before we get to the vote, just mention that under the DhIA bylaws, as the founder member, SSVT gets to appoint 3 directors. And so SSVT has reappointed 2 of those directors, Jairam Subramaniam and Vijay Kumar. And 1 new director, Swami Reddy, has been appointed by SSVT to fill the board, which is 15 members. So thank you, Mr. Raghavan. And I think if you go to the next page, Aparna, Umesh can give the results.
Shekhar, may I ask a question? Or to Raghavanji?
Yes, of course. Yes.
The term, the 3 directors appointed, is that a 3-year term or an annual term for the SSVT directors?
SSVT directors are appointed on a yearly basis.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Shekhar. And again, thanks to the diligent work by the nominations committee this year. It was a pretty easy process for us to go through this. We had 20 voting members who were eligible to vote based on DhIA's, the rules that we have had in place. Of those, 16 of the members cast their ballots, and all 16 members have unanimously voted to Wangmo Dixie for a 2-year term, and Amita Jain, Teja Rao, and Dali Oberoi for a 3-year term. So it was a unanimous election for all of them. And again, thank all the voting members for their work. And we did have actually a 2-week time frame wherein we had sent the report by the nominations committee along with the recommendation to the voting members, and then another email reminding them a week after that. And these are the final tabulations based on what we have received so far, which was compiled by one of the members from the nominations committee.
Thank you very much, Umesh. And this would be the moment, if we were all together, that we would be applauding that we have got 4 fabulous people on the board that are active already in DhIA, but also to thank Dr. Manoj Jain and Vasu Murthy, who are stepping off the board. Nobody's leaving anywhere. In fact, you'll hear from Vasu shortly, because he's going to continue to co-lead one of the working groups. But particularly, I want to thank Umesh Shankar, who came in initially as one of the founders of DhIA. In many ways, he was in the initial discussion meetings going back several years, and then stepped in and served as an officer for the last 2 years. So we've told him he's going nowhere, but he's allowed to step off for a little bit while he's got other obligations. But thank you, Umesh. Thank you, Manoj. Thank you, Vasuji. And you can't go anywhere, remember. That's what Mr. Raghavan told you that. So Raghavan, thank you for the nominations committee report and a very solid outcome, which will really help this board go to the next level. And I want to close the business meeting so we can go have a conversation together. We really need members, our working groups and the research committee need additional volunteers to serve. They are not burdens, they are co-leads that take the leadership. We are also providing now some additional staff support for them because our goal is very simple. We said this in the beginning and we'll repeat it. We need to pilot ideas and programs. Some will succeed, some will fail. We need to document what happens with them, like the whole concept with student engagement, the Dharma, business entrepreneurship. We have to create best practices for the things that work. And then we have to find other partners and interested individuals in other cities to take these things on with some seed money, which is why we raise these funds to support our programs and also to increase the potential for scalability. And these all fill real gaps. So our board meetings are once every 2 months. So we have 6 meetings a year. We've been doing them virtually. We are starting next week, actually. It's actually April 2nd, Saturday, for the election of officers and the approval of the 22 plans. And then the 3 working groups will have meetings and events regularly that are open to all members. So all of you will get these notices. Please participate as your time permits and actively, and hopefully lots more in person. So with that, let me close the working group meeting and the business meeting and go to the working groups. And I'm going to let the co-leads introduce their topic and then open it up for a conversation. You're welcome to put your comments in the chat or to just, if you want, go to reactions and put your raise hand function or jump in. So let me start with Women in Dharma. And this was co-led and is continuing to be co-led by Nirupama Raghavan and Teja Rao. So Nirupama, why don't we go to you?
Thank you so much, Shekhar. We'll start with just a brief overview of what we did in the past year. Aparna touched on this a little bit, so I won't go into a ton of detail, but we certainly had an active last year, kicked off our Women in Dharma work stream with a leadership conference last April that talked about how people apply Dharma in their lives, whether it's their careers, whether it's entrepreneurship, and the support systems that people need in order to be successful. We also had several celebrity guests, including a couple of our new board members, as well as Pramila Jaipal shared a special message for us, and Sonal Shah was was our keynote speaker. From there, we focused a little more on a specific aspect of the need for women in Dharma, which is finance and financial stability. And we had a series of events focused on Dharma, women, and finance. And certainly all of these events got a tremendous response, and people were very eager to hear more. And so our job now is to think about how can we fulfill the need that we clearly found in the market for associating Dharma and women and their needs and in broader society. So if you go to the next slide, please. We took a step back. We took a step back and we said, how can Dharma create a strong foundation for women's holistic well-being? Because we think that's really the key thing here. We need to help people understand what Dharma is, what principles, values, and practices are, and how that can help them in their lives, and how is it relevant in their lives, and how can it create a strong sense of balance and purpose for them, which is how we chose to define well-being. And so we looked at 4 pillars of well-being: good health, having a supportive physical environment that enables you to do what you need to do; financial strength to achieve your goals; and relationships that support, nurture, and inspire you so you can achieve your goals. So we think these are the 4 key pillars of well-being, and certainly Dharma has a role to play in all of them. That being said, we won't focus on all aspects, all 4 pillars at the same time. In 2022, we've chosen to focus on financial strength and good health, primarily just so that we can focus our efforts and really be successful before we expand out. Though if opportunities arise, we'll certainly touch on the other pillars as well. And then we overlaid on top of this, these 4 pillars, some of the key activities we want to do and how they relate to each of the 4 pillars. So the book club, we think could touch on any of these 4 topics. Service opportunities could be created on any of these 4 pillars. An investment club that helps women think about their financial needs and how to achieve those, but it also creates an opportunity for women to network and to build a community of interest as well. And then a webinar series, which of course could cover all aspects, but we'll continue to focus in 2022 on our financial women, Dharma, and finance. So I'm going to turn it over to DhIA to talk next about some very specific goals we have for 2022.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks. As Mary said with the graphic in the prior one, we have some fairly comprehensive goals for 2022, but we also want to make sure that the activities we have assigned to those goals are achievable. And so one of the things we really want to do is make sure that we understand our target audience and who exactly it is who would be both interested, and it would be helpful for us to provide this information to. So getting a better understanding of our target audience is top of our list. Are we attracting women over the age of 35? Do we have mostly millennials? Are we attracting that college age or just post-college age audience? And so that's top of the list. We also want to make sure that we have a solid marketing plan, outreach and awareness, if you prefer, to build awareness of these activities. And as I think it was initially noted, last year, setting up the social media presence for DhIA was extremely helpful for Facebook and Instagram. And now the challenge is to build those platforms because we know Facebook tends to attract a slightly older audience. Instagram has a slightly younger footprint. And so where is their target audience and how do we reach them through social media as well as other marketing efforts as well, not just social media. Building partnerships continues to be a key here. We were able to work with FEMA from Girls Who Invest for one of our webinars last year, and Marquette University and Harvard Divinity School have also been identified for potential partnership opportunities because we know that if we really want to scale this, we're going to need that community, that partnership with other organizations. So the key events, again, this is going back to the prior diagram, as you saw, we will continue our webinar series. The book club we are looking at a variety of topics for the book club, everything from the power of Dharma, pulling selected articles together for discussion, and really having discussions not just on the topics such as money, but also how it relates to Dharma and the principles of Dharma. We'd like to kick off an investing club, but that will be a challenge. Of course, I think that will be a big challenge for us, not just logistically, but also to make sure we have the right partnership and expertise to help guide us through that. And then finally, if it's possible, to host an in-person networking event potentially in September. And this would be targeting women interested in different various careers and hope to capturing more of the younger audience with that event out in September. And of course, that would be dependent on the COVID situation, whether we'd be able to do it live or not. So these are some of the objectives and key events for this upcoming year.
Thank you so much, Teja and Niru. Tremendous progress. Aparna, can we go to, can we unshare for a few minutes and just see everybody and ask? So first, any comments, questions, ideas, or thoughts? Let's take a few minutes, specifically around the Women in Dharma focus and some of the things that they've put on the table to talk about for 2022. Dr. Shiva, I see your hand up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, this is just wonderful. I think what Teja outlined, especially, I like the webinar series, talking about for women and about taxes, budgeting, retirement planning. I think this will be very critical. Kalyani, for one, for sure, will want to participate in those things as well. She's sitting right next to me, and the second part of that is also, this idea of investing club. Again, for I can also participate in that, but women also can look at in terms of how, as a group, they can look at and get sources and resources to be able to say how to invest in what and depending upon what age. I think excellent ideas. And this year, I think we can be very active. And thank you very much for putting that forward.
Thank you so much.
Terrific.
We recognize it's ambitious. Sorry, Shekhar. I just wanted to say we recognize it's ambitious, and really we are going to be looking for building those partnerships with other organizations in order to make it work well.
Any other comments? Remember, they want support, and it doesn't have to be only women.
Yeah, Shekhar, it's probably worth mentioning that we listed out a couple of examples of potential partners based on institutions that seem to already be doing work related to women and religion, and so we thought those might be good places to start. But obviously, Georgetown, Princeton, universities with whom we already have a relationship are good places to try to expand as well. They may or may not be the right fit for women in Dharma, but they, certainly it's a good place to start. And it's a welcome partner or a welcoming partner is really the best place for us to look first.
And by the way, just so you all don't think we're all centric in Washington, Dr. Manoj Jain was from Memphis, Tennessee, and Teja Rao is from Barcelona, Spain. And thank you, Teja. And Wang Bo Dixie is from Berkeley, California. So we're trying to also expand our geographic and I think international reach because of Teja. So Aparna, can we go back to, remember, all their materials are on the web, and we really want your continued participation. So let's go to the next working group. And again, we'll open it up. And remember, this is the beginning of conversation, not the end by any means. Dharmalia and Youth Engagement is co-led by Dave Ganeshan, whose name I mentioned earlier. I mentioned it, Dave, in the context of Jose Andres and the World Kitchen in my moment of reflection, and Dolly Oberoi and Sushil Jain. Dave, are you going to kick us off?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you again. Before I get into this, I think Umesh slightly referred that, but I think a big accomplishment for us in the fundraising, as you all know, we did raise a lot of funds for COVID, particularly with the Rotary Club of Madras. And in that process, we were very successful in reaching out to some of the large corporations. And for the first time, DhIA got good visibility within the corporate world, especially in California. So we had a lot of exposure from Cisco. In fact, Cisco CEO mentioned about DhIA's efforts in a town hall meeting last year with all the employees. The same thing has gone on with Microsoft, Intel. And so today we are all geared. We have done a lot of work in the background through this program called Benevity. We are all ready to accept matching gifts from these large corporations. But the whole goal is that we need to get more and more exposure into the large corporations. So we will be pushing that in 2023. So coming back, so sorry for digressing there. So coming back to this point, Aparna has already mentioned all the efforts that has gone on. To me, this is the most exciting stuff that goes on in DhIA, because you have an incredible opportunity of engaging with the youth. And that too, without going to them, lecturing about what Dharma is, we are actually going and solving a big need for them. And what we found when we basically interacted with all the students in Georgetown is there is absolute zero engagement for them with the dharmic leaders. And they are lost, and whereas all the other communities are giving them a lot of support, the Jewish community and the Islamic community. So this is a good way of engaging with them when they need it the most. And so we launched the program very well, where we brought different business CEO leaders to go and meet with them. Very successful, very engaged. And we are planning to take that this year across other universities. We know that model works, that pilot works. How can we take that and move it forward into other local universities and also with some other universities that's laid out here? As you know, Dolly sits on in George Mason board. So that's the first one we will try to take this. So we also are planning to create an online engagement for with this youth. So it's not going to be a one-time effort. So as they all come and meet with us in these one-on-one engagement, which is face-to-face with the business leaders, we're also going to create a community, say in LinkedIn, where they can continue to engage with the dharmic leaders everywhere, not only in the local area, but for example, they can meet with some of the dharmic leaders in Barcelona or dharmic leaders in California. In that way, they can sort of engage. So we are pretty excited to move this forward. Sushilji, you want to add anything? Probably he's on mute. I think we covered. Dolly couldn't join today, I think.
Yeah, she had to attend something else. She said she'll try around 3 o'clock or so. But Aparna, why don't we open it up and see everybody at least who's on the screen. It has felt to us, and maybe Vivek wants to comment because he has taken some initiative here as well, that we can't afford to lose these young people when they go to college. And there's got to be a way to connect them back to community. Vivek, do you want to comment on it from some of your experience?
Works. Yeah, in my mind, the transition from high school to college, it's a pretty big one. And the question then arises, what is the best way that we can support these youth during this transition? And it's the transition not only into college, but leaving college and moving on to other parts of the country. Their first job or going to graduate school. Now, how is it that we can provide this support? And in my mind, there's actually 3 ways we can provide this support. Number one, food. If you've ever gone to an event at a university, the best way to get people involved is you say there's going to be free food. And I guarantee you're going to have a large population of kids, young adults who want to participate. The second thing is through working with recruiters and mentors for different areas of employment. That's always going to be a huge thing, especially for our young adults coming from India, coming to the United States. They're always looking for opportunities. They're looking for what's beyond college for us to be sustained in this country. So those 2 things are, in my mind, critically important. And the third thing is connections. So as they're going to be moving around the country, and the United States or the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area is very transient in terms of its population. How is it that we can connect them to people of the same dharmic values to allow them to have a smoother transition when they leave to another city? By having all that data, all that information really allows us to capture and at the same time allow them to maintain that connection. And I say that the transition is important because then what they can do is be active in that particular area where they move to. We can then rely on them as a source of communication for future generation of students when they need help in that particular area. So in my mind, those are three very specific and very important ways that we can help the current youth. Again, I like to break that apart as two different types of youth. First generation students, and of course, students coming from India.
And I think even I looked at Shiva's comment, and I think a good point on the food. One thing we may need some help is, because I see Aparna working pretty hard, and frankly, it's very disappointing the community not stepping forward to help us on providing food, and so always, we need help as we move forward these programs where we need to canvas more in our community that they can sort of step up and fund and sponsor some of these food events. Because I've seen, that we run around and always find it difficult. I'm pretty surprised and shocked that we find it difficult to find sponsors. So that's something which we need to spread the word and get more people to come in and help us.
Thank you. Sushil, did you want to say a word before we move to our last group? Go ahead. You need to unmute. There you are.
I'm okay.
Okay, fantastic. Aparna, then we'll move to the last group. Vasu, I see you're here. You and Wang Mo have been co-leading this, so please take us through where you are.
Sure, yeah. So me and Wang Mo were brainstorming in this. I'm hoping that Amita Jain, and I'm also in touch with Madhu Kadari to evolve this a little bit further. So going with the theme that DhIA is mainly focused on how do you apply the dharmic principles in day-to-day life. So we are trying to see how meditation and mindfulness can be applied in day-to-day settings, and also outcome-based items. So we're not a dharmic institution, it's an education institution. We teach a little bit, but we want to make sure that there are positive outcomes that people can realize immediately. So that's our focus. And some of the things we've been thinking of is seeing how self-awareness and neuroplasticity, that's a big thing. How can we help it? How can we use that to help in adults and children as we go forward? And mental well-being is also a very important part due to COVID and other things in the society, the split things in Ukraine and other parts of the world. So how can we promote compassion and peace for ourselves and for the whole world as a whole? That's another topic we're thinking of. And there are specific protocols in mindfulness and meditation that we can use to address anxiety, fear, and anger detox procedures. We want to focus on that. And also the concept of servant leadership and empathic communications, and how can it apply in the business setting. That's also another area of focus we want to do. And last year also, DhIA did meditation from different dharmic traditions. How different dharmic traditions approach meditation. We'll also have a couple of programs there. And sound sleep and wellness and meditation is also very important. That is also a topic we want to focus on. I was being aware of this topic called, we all know this Yoga Nidra, and it's been sort of, there's a new terminology in the West for it. It's called NSDR, I think, non-sleep, deep relaxation. So it looks like Google CEO Sundar Pichai mentioned it in one of his talks. That become very popular here. So the people are taking the dharmic traditions and putting a Western label and market it well. So I think that's also another area we want to focus on. These are the yogic techniques that can help practical benefits to people on a day-to-day basis. And we want to focus on those kind of items. And similarly, some of the same techniques can be used for college and high school students also. Exam anxiety reduction is a very popular item. I think that yogic techniques can be a big help in helping students in that area. And to give self-empathy, compassion, confidence to students also is very important. So perhaps you can work with Dharmalaya on that particular topic. And social media addiction is also another topic that will be useful for both students as well as parents, how to address that. So these are some of the topics we're considering, and in touch with Madhu Kadari. We'll get in touch with Amita Jain to focus some more on these topics and have regular meetings on this topic and flesh out some programs in this area.
Why don't we open it up again? Thank you. Thank you, Aparna. I did notice that Madhu joined us, and I know Amita was not able to join today, but Amita is now on the board. So
Yes,
Vasi,
yes,
you will be
yes.
able to grab her at least once every 2 months. So,
Yes, definitely, we'll do that.
And Madhu, I don't know if you're in a position to speak, but we'd love to partner.
Definitely, Shekhar. More than happy to. I looked at all the topics that Vasuji just mentioned. I know we missed speaking. I think we've been in touch last couple of weeks, but we will get in touch. These are definitely the areas, where we have been working for last several years. So more than happy to partner and see what we can do and where we can collaborate and take it forward. Absolutely.
Any comments, questions, thoughts from anyone? Okay, let's go to the research committee. And Vivek Dwivedi is taking over the research committee from Rohit Sethi. So Vivek, would you like to walk this? A little hard to read, so you may just want to touch on the highlights.
Sure thing. So good afternoon, everyone. So the main objective of the research committee is to provide support to our different working groups, is to collect what I call unbiased data to help support and provide some of the foundation necessary for the work that they're doing. So what we see right here is a living document that we've created, which really gives us every single center of study, or it's living. So we're hoping to expand upon this as we move forward. And this really gives us all the centers of study and of course the point of contacts for those different centers of study across the United States. Now, as mentioned before, this is critically important. And one of the main reasons why it's critically important is that, again, it provides a means for, again, young adults at the university level who may be heading over to a different part of the country as a source of support if they need it. For example, there's a Jain Center of Study at Florida. Of course, there's 2 in California. So there's at least someone that they could potentially tag with. The second reason why this is important is through just mutual connection. If, for example, there is a natural disaster or something occurs across the country, then this could be a very important Rolodex for us, DhIA, to reach out to that organization, see how we can provide support with them. So that's another important reason why this living document needs to be maintained and constantly updated. And in my mind, another reason why this is critically important is that this provides a web for resources for us. As mentioned, our job is to collect data. And by reaching out to these different centers of study, we can utilize their database of their participants within their group and collect data from them. So that sort of leads me to the next slide. And how do we go about collecting data, and what can we actually do in order to collect data? So we have a Facebook page, we have Instagram, and how do we get more data? Specifically, as an example, survey on women in financial planning. What exactly do women actually want, and how do we collect that data? So this is a very simple Google form. And what we can do is that we can blast this form to our different listservs that we have, not only within DhIA, but again, our support organizations across the country. Another way that we could potentially do this is something that we're interested in seeing is how do we utilize current technology to distribute this form? Now, if I go to the Sri Vishnu Temple on the weekends, we see a large number of individuals who go there, unique individuals who go there on Saturday and Sunday. So if we had a fiducial, a QR code that they can scan and fill out this form, this is one way of collecting that data. The other way is, can we have a tablet within SSVT? Now, by having a tablet SSVT to have, young ladies and ladies of different generations fill out this form. And that again is a very unique way of collecting data. So there's multiple ways that we want to collect data and really need the support of our organization in order to get volunteers to help collect that data as well. And finally, one other thing I think is important to recognize is, what are other areas of research that we can support? In my mind, things such as Dharmic physical sciences, Dharmic mathematics, and the use of computer science. There's been a lot of work, a lot of research in that particular area. And how do we implement that within our organization? So again, we're always looking for more support and more help. At the same time, we're also looking for other areas for us to research and provide information to. So with that, thank you.
Vivek, thank you very much. Let me just quickly touch on this last slide, and then we're just going to open it up for a conversation with all of you on anything you've heard or any questions you might have. There are two aspects to what DhIA has been doing. One is in 21, it was building out, as Dave mentioned and others have mentioned, the social media reach, the communications, and these corporate relationships, and just the basic, again, infrastructure of credibility. And then the three were these working groups, and where do we concentrate and focus? And then how can we propagate it? How can we pilot and sustain? But we also have not forgotten, though we're going to, this is a work in progress, that everything should be grounded in data, and it should be able to be measurable, and we ought to be able to tell people this worked and this is how it worked. And that didn't work, but it doesn't mean it'll never work. It just means it didn't work, and here's the proof that it didn't work. So the work of the research committee that Vivek's talking about really underpins a lot of our thesis, which is how do we support these groups to do more reach out, more analysis after the fact. And we've seen evidence of that. And Rohit is to be commended for getting us to this point. And Vivek's obviously going to take us to a much greater level of analysis and forward surveying. But you can see that the three things we talked about, the mindfulness in meditation, the women in finance, and the youth engagement, are all part of the thesis of how do we go into education, social service, and the arts. And we have not done enough in the arts. So we have got somebody who has approached us about taking all the festival of all four traditions, compiling a calendar, and actually picking perhaps one or two each quarter, and then coming up with educational ways that we can talk to all our communities about why these are significant to them. In India, for example, we do celebrate all the traditions and many of the festivals. In fact, there are more holidays in India, I think, national holidays than any other country on earth for that reason. I say that somewhat facetiously, but it's true. So how do we now do that here in a way that our school systems and our institutions recognize these, even though they cut across faiths? But we do it in a way that young people feel connected. And the experiment that Aparna did with a group of volunteers around Diwali was not just lighting a lamp or celebrating Diwali. It was, can these young children now start telling the stories of how they feel about Diwali from their perspective, not our perspective or somebody else who came from India. So it's really critical that we do the work upfront on analysis and research, and then collect the data, and then actually be able to document it. So I want to leave you with this because there's a lot, and we are still talking about what is our role in civic engagement. It is a significant issue because there are well over 11 million people of dharmic faiths in the United States. Nobody has attempted to talk about what is our civic responsibility here. And it's not just about elections and voting. It's much greater: community participation, engagement in broader activities, interfaith activities. Because if there's not good assimilation, I think the next generations and the ones after that will suffer. So how we do that is an open topic. I would love to open it up with that concept. But Aparna, last slide, just to tell people, look, you can reach us in 100 different ways. And you absolutely are encouraged to join us as a member in whatever form you wish. Or if you care deeply about one of these particular programs, engage with the working group. find us donors for that, because we want to grow those in other communities. And being able to say, here's what works, offering a few $1,000s to help them get started can be the difference between something happening or not happening. So let's open it up. And I know where everyone's got commitments. It is a Sunday afternoon, but I don't want to, stop you from conversation. So, I see some familiar faces there. So I think I'm just going to start off with Mansi, tell us what you think. And, I know you're changing roles shortly. So tell us a little bit about that for a minute or two, please.
Sure. Thanks all for all of the information. It sounds like there's really exciting plans for 2022. And, I think there's a lot of great programming and a lot of great ideas. I think something which really appealed to me was the component that's specifically tailored for women, and especially the all of the financial programming and resources that's being done. And I think it's fantastic that all of that is now available for the public as well. And one thing, as the organization grows, it may be nice to also have that all available on YouTube as well, because people can then just search on YouTube and find all those resources as well. So but I think it's really fantastic idea, and agree with all the points that were made, including the outreach for college. I can speak personally that it's a big transition from just having your parents kind of push you to do, get involved in your culture and faith, and then going to college and not kind of having that support and resources, and kind of almost having to rediscover it on your own. So, but that's just, great to be a part of the call.
Yeah. Thank you, Mansi, and want to keep you engaged as you transition into other roles as well.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts as we go forward? I can't believe nobody. Go ahead.
Shaker, I have a quick question. I just was wondering if there was an update. I know that DhIA was looking for a coordinator. If there was an update on that.
Not as yet, Tejo. We're still interviewing. Would love to get more candidates if you have. We want to take our time to find the right one. So certainly, please keep letting us know any candidates that you have.
Thank you.
Yes, and in fact, if any of you has ideas, we're looking for someone who is either, has been doing some work already and is looking for something part-time that they can do, probably online mostly, so it doesn't have to be located in any particular place. But Aparna is leading that charge and can shoot you out a job description or a job outline. And we haven't posted it officially, I would say, but we're really looking for people in that generation that can add some to social media outreach, well beyond Instagram and Facebook. I know Umesh said that's where young people are. Well, they're in TikTok, and they've crossed into a whole bunch of other places, and we need help in getting to them.
Yeah, it will be good to have the job description circulated. I think there is a potential for a couple of them that may be, willing, but depends on the job description.
Yeah, we'll put it up on the website and circulate the link again. I think it was sent out earlier to board members, but we'll take care of that, Dr. Shiva.
I wonder if there are any students with whom we've been engaging at Georgetown.
Yeah, they are. That's why I was asking, because there are 2 or 3 people who have asked me.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to see.
Yeah. It was floated to all of those universities that we already have contacts. Places that we have warm, hot contacts, we've posted it. We've just not done a cold contact distribution yet. But that may be next.
Dave, did you want to jump in?
I was saying, please don't take away the volunteers from Georgetown. We need it for other purpose.
Understand. Well, what we were hoping was to get somebody who would help with each of these 3 working groups that have great leaders and lots of initiatives, but organize outreach, or as Vivek says, just simply the act of asking ahead of time, what are you looking for? So that we're not just trying to say we're going to create a program, but are there 500 people who want that? And are there ways to get volunteers to just help us for a few hours? But who coordinates all that work is rather critical. And so trying to get somebody who's going to stay on top of it, sort of 20 hours a week was what we were hoping for. To be able to do that would be enormous. That's a big step forward for this organization, is building that kind of infrastructure. So any other comments, thoughts for the good of the order? Yes, Vijay, please.
Namaste, everybody. Two thoughts. One about the women in Dharma category and area of work that we have. Just was thinking that recently, at least over the last 5 years, the UN and the Indian Embassy to the UN in New York has identified areas for support for immigrant women in particular that meet with marriage trouble as they transition overseas into the United States and are sometimes often left high and dry. So I'm thinking we were identifying some partner institutions at the educational level. I'm wondering if we can also include financial institutions that would be more oriented towards, let's say, forgiveness-oriented loans and resources to actually help empower and help manage with the upkeep of women on the ground as well, because not all of these women will have access to, let's say, either us or to pristine educational institutions to be able to glean the benefits from what we can offer. So was thinking around that, if we can identify financial institutions that would support women on the ground, whether that be banks, whether that be insurance organizations, that kind of thing.
Vijay, can I set up some time with you to learn a little bit more about what you're thinking around that?
Sure thing.
Okay, thanks.
And the second area, Shekhar, we mentioned this last time as well, was around the healthcare and COVID donations that we have. Mm-hmm. And as we're transitioning that, because whether or not COVID becomes more or less of a priority as we're moving into the new year and things of that nature. Wondering if we want to start to think about transitioning that area into healthcare overall, as opposed to just strictly COVID. An example would be, let's say if we called it healthcare COVID to cancer. That could help us get partnerships with the White House with the Moonshot Cancer, the Moonshot to Cancer focus area of President Biden. So there might be some areas that we may want to abstract it. And then as we get Democratic administrations, we can lean one way. As we get other administrations, we can lean another way from a healthcare standpoint. If it was a Republican administration, we could be looking at opioid addictions and things that would be amongst their priorities as well. So, but abstracting that COVID donation area to healthcare overall, it will also give us some flexibility with how we want to spend those monies as they continue to come in. I don't know if we've actually submitted all of those dollars to charities overseas in India, or if we have any.
What did we give out? We gave out at least 12,500 plus the 18,000 for RCME. So I think 30,000 was donated. Yeah.
Yeah, and we only, we've given away everything that we have collected. That was done for COVID relief. We did not want to hold on to any of it. So that's not there. That was brought in and it was dispersed in real time.
Sounds good.
But I think your point is that we could do it again. We could do it differently. We could make it longer term, more strategic in some ways. And
it could be continuous for that matter. And all we have to do is pick the priority of the day, because we know that from a healthcare standpoint, it's going to be like a clock.
Excellent. Thank you, Vijay.
Sure.
Any other comments, thoughts, questions? Okay. Listen, we've kept you a long time, but more importantly, we hope that you will stay engaged with us. Our purpose in trying to be as transparent as possible and laying it all out and even some things that are just works in progress. Many people who helped to create this would say that we are probably in better shape in some ways. But we did live through COVID together, and we've got a lot more work to do to have a real impact. So I just want to leave you with the challenge that there's a lot more work to do, but it's really fantastic to be where we are today. And I look forward to working with each and every one of you as we go forward. So thank you all, and I will look forward to seeing many of you in person May 7th at SSVT for Professor Pratap Bhanu Mehta. And we'll send you materials in advance or at the board meeting next Saturday. Thank you. Appreciate it. Namaste, everyone. Bye-bye. Take care.
Namaste.